I used to believe that having your best friend and your wife become close was the best thing that could happen to a man. When I married Emily, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. She was beautiful, kind, and loved how close I was to my childhood friend, Sarah. Sarah and I had grown up together. We shared bikes, camped in the woods behind my parents' house, and even survived high school drama side by side. When Emily and I started dating, Sarah was thrilled. She became like a sister to her, and in turn, Emily welcomed Sarah into our home and our lives. It seemed perfect until I learned the truth. At first, it was little things. Sarah would stop by almost daily, often unannounced. Emily would invite her to stay for dinner, sometimes even for the night if they'd had too much wine. I didn't think much of it. They were best friends, and it warmed me to know the two women I cared about most got along so well. Whenever I was working late or traveling for my job, I felt comforted knowing Emily had company. But over time, I noticed moments that didn't sit right. When I walked into a room, conversations would suddenly stop. Sarah and Emily would exchange knowing looks, followed by nervous laughter. Once, I came home early from a weekend trip and found Sarah's coat hanging on our chair, though she supposedly hadn't been over in days. Emily brushed it off with a laugh, saying Sarah had left it last time. I wanted to believe her. Then came the night that started everything. I woke up around 2 a.m. to find Emily's side of the bed empty. Thinking she might be in the kitchen, I went downstairs. From the hallway, I heard hushed voices and laughter coming from the living room. I peeked around the corner and saw Emily on the couch with Sarah, sitting closer than I'd ever seen them before, Sarah's hand resting on Emily's knee. When they noticed me, they jumped apart. Emily quickly said they were just catching up. I wanted to believe that too, but my gut told me something was wrong. I mentioned it to Emily later, carefully, not accusingly. She rolled her eyes and said I was being ridiculous. She's like my sister, Emily said, placing her hand on mine. How could you even think that? Sarah, when I brought it up to her, laughed so hard she nearly cried. What's gotten into you, man? We've been friends since we were kids. They both made me feel like a paranoid fool. After that, I tried to push away my doubts. Months went by without incident, and I convinced myself I was imagining things. But deep down, unease lingered. Small signs kept creeping up. Sarah seemed to know intimate details about arguments Emily and I had in private. Emily canceled date nights to help Sarah with something urgent. Once, I found a wine glass in the sink when Emily swore she'd been home alone all day. It wasn't just my imagination. I could feel it. I noticed how Emily's face lit up when Sarah texted her, a glow I rarely saw anymore when she looked at me. I noticed their inside jokes, the whispers when they thought I couldn't hear. Still, every time I brought up my concerns, they shot me down, telling me I was insecure, controlling, even jealous of their friendship. Our friends started making jokes about it too. At parties, people teased that Emily and Sarah were inseparable, sometimes hinting that they seemed closer than just friends. Emily would laugh it off, Sarah would roll her eyes, and everyone would move on. I laughed along, pretending it didn't sting, but inside I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Then, a few months ago, we hosted a small dinner for some mutual friends. Halfway through, Emily and Sarah disappeared into the kitchen together. They were gone for almost an hour. When I finally went to check, I heard their voices through the door, low, intimate, almost like lovers. When I stepped in, they jumped apart again, laughing awkwardly. Emily said Sarah had been crying about a breakup, and she was just comforting her. That night, lying in bed alone while Emily consoled Sarah in the guest room, something inside me shifted. I realized that every time I raised suspicion, Emily and Sarah worked together to make me doubt myself. It wasn't just that they were close. It was that they were united against me. That's when the paranoia ended. I knew I needed to stop confronting them outright, because they'd only twist it back on me. Instead, I would watch, listen, and find the truth on my own. In the days that followed, I paid more attention to the patterns. Sarah visited most when I worked late shifts. When I tried to join them for their weekly girls' night, Emily told me it was just for them. Sarah texted Emily constantly, sometimes even late at night when I was right there. The final straw came on a Saturday afternoon. I went to run errands and forgot my wallet, so I came back 10 minutes later. Through the kitchen window, I saw Emily and Sarah embracing. Not a friendly hug, but something deeper, intimate. When they saw me pull into the driveway, Sarah bolted out the back door while Emily met me at the front, pretending she'd been alone. That was the moment I stopped being naive. For years, I'd trusted Sarah like a sister, and believed Emily when she said I was imagining things. But now I knew I wasn't crazy. My wife and my childhood friend had been betraying me for God knows how long, and they'd been playing me like a fool. I didn't confront them, not yet. I smiled, kissed Emily on the cheek, and told her nothing was wrong. Because if they wanted me to look like the paranoid husband, I'd let them think they'd won. While inside, I started planning how I'd take everything back, my dignity, my reputation, and make sure that when the truth finally came out, neither Emily nor Sarah would have anywhere left to hide. For the next few weeks, I played along. Emily believed my smile, my silence. Sarah even joked that I'd finally relaxed, thinking their act had worked. But I was done being fooled. I needed proof, something undeniable that would shatter the facade they'd built. It started with the phone. Emily had grown protective of hers, keeping it face down on tables, taking it to the bathroom, even for a quick shower. One night, while she was asleep, I tried to unlock it. But Emily wasn't careless. She'd set up biometric locks and hidden her messages. The only thing I found was a single notification from Sarah. Same time tomorrow. It vanished before I could click it. I confronted Emily casually the next day, masking my tone as curiosity. You and Sarah sure spend a lot of time together, I said over breakfast. Emily didn't flinch. She just sipped her coffee and shrugged. She's my best friend. You've known her forever, Robert. Why are you acting jealous all of a sudden? I laughed it off, but she pressed harder, her voice tinged with accusation. This is starting to feel controlling. I don't need permission to see Sarah. Maybe you should talk to someone about these insecurities. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. For years, I trusted Emily completely, and now she was turning her betrayal into my flaw. When I told Sarah privately that I thought something was off, she smirked and said, "You're losing it, Rob. Maybe marriage made you paranoid." She said it like a joke, but her eyes glimmered with satisfaction, as if she enjoyed watching me doubt myself. Our mutual friends noticed the tension. At a barbecue, one of them joked, "Emily and Sarah are practically married themselves." Everyone laughed except me. Emily slipped her arm through Sarah's and played along. "Well, Rob's always working late, so someone has to keep me company." The group laughed harder. I forced a smile while my stomach churned. At night, when Emily thought I was asleep, I could hear her whispering into the phone. Once, I caught the words, "I love you," and froze. My heart pounded as I turned slightly to see her screen, but she caught me looking and quickly said, "That was Sarah, just talking about her mom. Don't be weird." She kissed my forehead and went back to typing under the covers. Every time I tried to approach the truth directly, Emily and Sarah turned it around. When I asked why Sarah's car was parked outside our house for hours when I wasn't home, Emily claimed Sarah needed emotional support. When I noticed Sarah's perfume on Emily's clothes, Emily scoffed, saying they hugged often. If I even hinted at something more, Sarah would confide in Emily about how creepy my questions were, making me look like a jealous husband to my own wife. The gaslighting worked at first. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I had truly gone insane, if maybe my mind was inventing a story that wasn't there. But then came the day that erased every shred of doubt. I left work early on a Wednesday and drove home quietly, parking a street away. As I approached the house, I saw Sarah's car in the driveway. From the sidewalk, I could see through the partially open curtains. Emily and Sarah were in the kitchen, arms around each other, kissing passionately. My chest tightened, but I didn't make a sound. I backed away, returned to my car, and sat there for what felt like hours. That was the moment my strategy changed forever. There would be no more desperate questions or pleading conversations. I had all the confirmation I needed. That night, Emily acted normal, serving dinner like nothing had happened. She asked about my day, kissed my cheek, and even cuddled up to me on the couch. I played along, laughing at her jokes, hiding the rage simmering beneath my calm exterior. Inside, I knew one thing. The only way to win was to let them think they were still winning. I began noticing patterns I had missed before. Emily and Sarah had book club every Thursday, a club I realized no one else was in. Saturday nights, Emily often claimed to be visiting Sarah to help her through a tough time, but when I checked social media, Sarah had no posts about trouble, only photos of vacations and expensive dinners. When I suggested inviting Sarah's latest boyfriend over, Emily's face turned pale before she made an excuse that he was shy. One evening, while Emily showered, I heard Sarah's ringtone. Emily had left her phone on the sink by mistake. My hands shook as I opened the recent call log. Sarah's name filled the screen, Hours of late-night calls, some lasting until dawn. Before I could dig deeper, Emily returned, snatching the phone from my hands with a glare. "What is wrong with you?" she yelled. "Spying now? This isn't love, Robert. This is obsession." She stormed out, calling Sarah immediately. I heard her say, "He's getting worse. We need to figure this out." Later that night, Sarah texted me directly for the first time in months. "Stop accusing Emily of things. You're embarrassing yourself." It was a trap. They wanted me to explode, to create a scene, to give them the excuse to paint me as unstable to everyone we knew. But instead of responding, I deleted the message and smiled to myself. They thought they were clever. They thought they could gaslight me until I broke. What they didn't know was that from that moment on, I had no intention of breaking. I was going to watch, quietly, patiently, until the day came when I would expose every lie they had told, not just to me, but to everyone who had ever trusted them. And when that day came, neither Emily nor Sarah would have a friend left in the world. After months of being lied to, manipulated, and told I was imagining things, I finally accepted the truth. Emily and Sarah were not just friends. They were lovers, and they had been lying to me for years. But instead of confronting them in a heated argument, which would only make me look unhinged, I decided to approach this the way you dismantle a trap, slowly, carefully, with absolute precision. The first step was surveillance. I went to an electronics store on the other side of town and bought a set of small, motion-activated cameras and voice recorders. To avoid suspicion, I told Emily I was helping a friend set up security for his shop. That weekend, while Emily was out helping Sarah, I installed the cameras. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, and two upstairs, one in the hallway, one in the guest room. I also placed a tiny recorder under the couch cushion where Emily often sat on late-night calls. The second step was digital tracking. I couldn't access Emily's phone directly, but I found a way to recover deleted data from our shared cloud storage. What I found made my stomach turn: hidden photo albums of girls' trips, with Sarah that were clearly romantic. Pictures of them holding hands on the beach, Sarah kissing Emily's cheek, while Emily smiled like she hadn't smiled at me in years. There were no men in these trips, just the two of them. My hands shook as I scrolled, but I didn't confront Emily. Instead, I copied every image onto a separate drive and locked it away. I needed undeniable proof, something that couldn't be twisted or denied. Next, I hired a private investigator. Mark, an old acquaintance from college who now worked in surveillance, agreed to help discreetly. He spent 2 weeks following Emily's Thursday book clubs and Saturday emotional support visits. The report he handed me was as thick as a novel. Inside were time-stamped photos of Emily and Sarah entering hotels together, dining in quiet corners of upscale restaurants, even kissing openly in a parking lot miles from home. I stared at the images for hours, not out of shock. I'd already suspected everything, but out of determination. They had mocked me for being paranoid, laughed behind my back, and manipulated me into doubting my own sanity. Now, I had proof that would silence every lie. The hardest part was maintaining my composure. Emily came home after one of these secret weekends, throwing her arms around me and thanking me for trusting her. She had no idea I knew where she'd really been. Sarah dropped by the next morning, hugging me and joking about how stressed Emily had been lately. Every fake smile they flashed fueled my resolve. With every passing day, my plan grew clearer. It wasn't enough to simply divorce Emily or confront Sarah privately. They had spent years destroying my dignity, making me seem like the unstable husband, while they carried on their affair in secret. When I exposed them, it would have to be so thorough, so undeniable, that neither Emily nor Sarah could recover their reputation. I started preparing quietly. I spoke to a lawyer under the guise of updating my will. In reality, I asked about divorce options in cases of prolonged infidelity. The lawyer explained that with substantial evidence, like the photos, videos, and financial records I was collecting, I could secure a favorable settlement and reveal their deception publicly without risk of defamation claims. Meanwhile, I began isolating our joint finances. I moved savings into an account Emily couldn't access and rerouted my paycheck into a separate bank. If Emily noticed, she said nothing. Perhaps she thought I was distracted by work, too weak to notice her betrayal. One night, while Emily showered, my recorder under the couch caught something unexpected: Sarah's voice on speakerphone, saying, "He still doesn't suspect anything. Once we figure out the house situation, we can just cut him out." Emily laughed, saying, "Yeah, it's almost too easy. He buys every excuse I give him." I listened to that recording a dozen times, feeling my jaw clench tighter with each replay. They weren't just betraying me emotionally. They were planning to take everything we had built together. That weekend, Sarah hosted a girls' night at her place. Mark's investigator was already tailing them, capturing photos of Emily carrying overnight bags and wine bottles into Sarah's apartment. Inside, my hidden camera recorded Emily telling a friend on a video call how she and Sarah just wanted to be free of Robert and live openly once they sorted out the logistics. By logistics, they meant me. I realized this wasn't just an affair. It was a long-term plan to erase me from my own life, to steal my home, my finances, my reputation, and parade their relationship as something pure and liberating while painting me as the bitter ex-husband. That's when I knew exposure alone wasn't enough. I had to dismantle everything they relied on. Their ability to manipulate family and friends. Their access to our home and shared finances. Their false image as loyal friends and supportive partners. And I had to do it in one decisive blow, a moment where everyone saw who they truly were. To make that happen, I started planning a large family gathering under the guise of our upcoming wedding anniversary. I invited everyone, Emily's parents, my own family, lifelong friends, and of course, Sarah. They all said yes, excited to celebrate our love. Emily was thrilled, gushing about how romantic it would be to renew our vows in front of everyone. She had no idea that on that day, surrounded by every person who mattered in our lives, I would reveal exactly what she and Sarah had been doing for years. And when I did, there would be no denial, no recovery, and no sympathy left for either of them. From the moment I decided to host the anniversary gathering, my focus sharpened. I stopped thinking like a betrayed husband and started thinking like a tactician. Every move I made was deliberate, every word carefully chosen, ensuring Emily and Sarah remained blind to what was coming. Emily threw herself into the party planning. She was radiant, full of excitement, telling friends how much she loved me and how this anniversary meant so much. It was a perfect facade, the same one she'd been wearing for years. Sarah, too, played her part, pretending to be my supportive lifelong friend while secretly texting Emily under the table during family dinners. I let them plan everything, the decorations, the catering, even the guest list, while I worked quietly in the background. My lawyer and I set up financial protections to ensure Emily couldn't touch my assets when the divorce proceedings began. I also prepared custody of our home, legal paperwork ready to be filed immediately after the event. But the real key to my plan wasn't in court filings. It was in the evidence I'd been gathering for months. Hidden camera footage showing Emily and Sarah in intimate situations. Photos from the private investigator capturing them together at hotels and restaurants. Audio recordings of their conversations, including Sarah discussing plans to cut me out. Screenshots of secret photo albums and messages stored in the cloud. I compiled everything into a single, unshakable presentation. Videos, pictures, messages, all time-stamped and undeniable. My lawyer advised me to simply use it in court, but I wanted something more. Years of being called paranoid, crazy, jealous, of watching them laugh behind my back, demanded a public reckoning. I thought long and hard about whether this was revenge or justice. In the end, I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was the truth, laid bare for everyone to see. The day of the gathering arrived. Family and friends filled our home, laughing, sharing stories, toasting to our love. Emily looked stunning in a new dress, smiling at me like a perfect wife. Sarah hovered nearby, offering to help with drinks and hugging my relatives as if she hadn't been betraying me for years. I played my role flawlessly. I smiled, I laughed, I held Emily's hand. When my brother clapped me on the back and said, "You're a lucky man," I nodded, masking the storm brewing beneath my calm demeanor. After dinner, Emily stood up to thank everyone for coming. She gushed about our marriage, how strong our bond was, how grateful she was to have such loving friends and family. Sarah stood beside her, nodding along with a warm smile. When she finished, I took the floor. "Thank you, Emily," I said softly. "You're right. This anniversary is special. Because tonight, I want to share something important with everyone here. The truth about us." Emily's face lit up. She thought I was about to deliver a heartfelt speech, maybe even renew our vows. Sarah clasped her hands together, ready to bask in the glow of a romantic moment. I walked over to the TV screen we'd set up for a slideshow of wedding photos earlier. Instead, with one click, the screen came alive with the first image. Emily and Sarah, caught by my hidden camera, locked in an intimate embrace in our own home. Gasps filled the room. Emily's smile froze. Sarah's eyes went wide, her hands trembling. I continued speaking, my voice calm, deliberate. For years, I was told I was paranoid, that my suspicions were just jealousy. I doubted myself, believed lies, while the two people I trusted most betrayed me. More images appeared. Hotel photos, dinner dates, late-night kisses in parking lots. Then, audio clips played. Sarah's voice plotting to remove me from the picture, Emily agreeing. Guests turned to stare at them, disbelief and anger rippling through the crowd. Emily tried to step forward, stammering, "Robert, this isn't." I raised a hand. "Don't. I've been gaslit enough. Tonight, everyone sees the truth for themselves." Sarah looked around the room, searching for an ally, but there were none. Emily's parents were pale with shock, my brother shaking his head in disgust. Friends who had joked about their closeness now looked sickened by how far it had gone. I let the silence hang before finishing. "After this evening, Emily and I will no longer be married. The papers are ready. And Sarah, you're no longer my friend. Whatever you two thought you'd gain from this, it's over. You've lost the trust of everyone here, and you'll have to live with that." Emily broke down in tears, Sarah trying to console her, but no one offered them sympathy. Guests began leaving quietly, some openly expressing anger at being deceived for so long. I stood there calmly, watching the years of betrayal unravel in minutes. For the first time in years, I felt no confusion, no doubt, only the steady, cold relief of knowing justice had finally been served. After that night, nothing was the same. The very next morning, news of Emily and Sarah's betrayal spread like wildfire through our circle of family and friends. Calls and messages flooded my phone, not with pity for me, but with outrage toward them. People we'd known for years felt personally betrayed. They had welcomed Sarah like family and celebrated Emily as my loving wife. To discover they'd been lying to everyone for so long left people shocked and furious. Emily tried to do damage control. She sent long texts to friends claiming the whole thing was complicated, that she had fallen in love unexpectedly, and that I had invaded her privacy. She even hinted that our marriage had been cold and loveless for years, trying to justify her actions. But every time she reached out, someone sent me a screenshot of her message, usually accompanied by a reply that said something like, "You cheated on your husband with his best friend. There's nothing complicated about that." Sarah fared no better. She lost more than friends. She lost family. Her own parents called me, devastated, apologizing for their daughter's role in all this. Sarah's brother, who had once been like a younger sibling to me, sent a simple message. "I can't believe she did this to you. I want nothing to do with her anymore." They tried meeting with people face to face, begging for understanding, but no one would hear them out. It wasn't just the affair, it was the years of deception, the gaslighting, the manipulation. They had made me doubt myself, turned others against me, all while pretending to be loyal and trustworthy. That level of betrayal doesn't wash away with a few apologies. At home, Emily packed her belongings quietly under my watchful eye. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I'd done enough of that in my head over the years. When she tried to talk to me, saying we could work through this, I only said, "It's over, Emily. You made sure of that." I handed her the divorce papers I'd had ready for weeks. She tried to negotiate, asking for a share of the house, spousal support, even half my retirement fund. My lawyer dismantled every claim with ease. With the overwhelming evidence of infidelity and her financial misconduct during the marriage, the judge awarded her nothing. The house remained mine, my assets untouched. The day Emily left, Sarah was waiting for her outside. I watched through the window as Emily climbed into Sarah's car. They didn't look happy. They looked cornered, desperate. I realized that whatever love they thought they shared had been poisoned by everything they'd done to get there. They had burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship that mattered to them. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding my life. Friends who had once teased me about being paranoid now stood firmly by my side. We shared beers on the porch, laughed again like old times, and they admitted they admired how calmly I had handled everything. My family supported me completely, helping fix up the house and reminding me that I wasn't alone. But Emily and Sarah, they were alone. Completely. Photos surfaced on social media of them trying to attend events or meet with old friends, only to be met with cold shoulders and whispered disdain. No one wanted to be associated with them. Their names became synonymous with betrayal. Even their attempts at moving away from the town failed. Sarah's reputation as a homewrecker followed her. Emily couldn't escape the story of how she destroyed her marriage with the very woman I'd trusted most. Employers turned them away when their past came up during background checks or casual conversations. One afternoon, my brother ran into them at a grocery store. He later told me they looked exhausted, shopping for cheap meals, whispering to each other nervously as people stared. They left quickly, heads down. "They've lost everything, Rob," my brother said. "Friends, family, reputation, all gone." I nodded but didn't gloat. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. I had exposed the truth, cleared my name, and taken back my dignity. That was enough. As the divorce finalized, I made one last move. I legally barred Emily and Sarah from approaching my property or contacting me in any form. My lawyer ensured it was airtight. If they ever tried to drag me into their mess again, the law would stand firmly on my side. Months later, while sorting through old photo albums, I came across a picture of the three of us in high school. Me, Emily, and Sarah, arms slung around each other, smiling like we'd be friends forever. I stared at it for a long time, then quietly placed it in the trash. That chapter of my life was gone, and I had no desire to revisit it. From then on, my focus shifted to the future. I started taking weekend trips, reconnecting with hobbies I'd abandoned, and spending more time with people who genuinely cared about me. For the first time in years, my home felt like mine again, free of deceit, free of whispered lies. But the story of Emily and Sarah didn't just fade away. It stuck in people's minds as a lesson. That betrayal, no matter how carefully hidden, always finds the light. And when it does, there's no going back. 6 months after the disastrous anniversary night, my life had settled into something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The constant tension that had filled our home was gone, replaced with silence I could trust. The house, once a stage for lies and whispered conversations, was mine again. I'd repainted the walls, sold off furniture Emily picked out with Sarah's help, and remodeled the guest room that had once been their hideaway. It felt like a fresh start, free from the weight of betrayal. The divorce had been finalized 2 months earlier. The judge's decision had been clear. Emily walked away with nothing but her personal belongings. No alimony, no share of the house, no access to my savings or retirement funds. My lawyer had done his job well, armed with irrefutable evidence of her prolonged infidelity and manipulation. Sarah didn't fare much better. Her reputation had plummeted to rock bottom. She'd lost her job at a local community center after parents complained about trust issues. Her own family had cut ties. Friends, neighbors, even casual acquaintances kept their distance. When people saw Sarah and Emily together now, they didn't smile or wave. They whispered and walked the other way. Word reached me occasionally about their struggles. They had moved into a cramped rental on the outskirts of town, barely scraping by. Attempts to find work often failed once employers heard about their history. Emily had tried to start fresh with an online business, but online forums tore her apart the moment her name was recognized. Sarah's attempts at counseling or advocacy work were met with public backlash. I never gloated, but there was a certain grim justice in knowing they were living the consequences of their choices. They had built their relationship on deception, betrayal, and the humiliation of someone who had loved them both unconditionally. Now, isolated and rejected, they were left with nothing but each other, and even that bond, from what I'd heard, had begun to crack under the weight of what they'd done. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I reconnected with old friends who had stood by me, repaired strained relationships with family who once thought I was overreacting, and even took time to travel. Weekend fishing trips with my brother, hiking trails I hadn't visited in years, dinners with friends who reminded me what genuine companionship felt like. All of it helped me rebuild. One crisp autumn evening, I sat on my porch as the sun set, a glass of bourbon in hand. My brother joined me, glancing out at the yard. "You ever think about them anymore?" he asked. I thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Not because I miss them, but because I remember who I was back then, trusting to the point of blindness. I let people convince me I was crazy while they lied to my face. That won't ever happen again." He nodded. "You handled it better than most would. You didn't just walk away. You made sure everyone knew the truth. That was important to me. Exposing Emily and Sarah wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. For years, they had controlled the narrative, painting me as jealous and unstable. The night of the anniversary shattered that image completely. People saw me for what I truly was, a loyal husband betrayed by two people he trusted most. A week later, I ran into an old mutual friend at the store. She told me she'd seen Emily and Sarah recently. They looked like ghosts, she said softly. It's like the life's been drained out of them. Nobody talks to them anymore. I felt no joy in hearing it, only finality. Whatever they once were to me, wife, friend, family, it was gone forever. As the first snow fell that winter, I closed the final page of that chapter in my life. I donated the last of Emily's forgotten belongings, changed my will to reflect my new start, and deleted old photos that no longer meant anything. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man defined by betrayal. I was just Robert again, a man who'd been through hell, uncovered the truth, and come out stronger on the other side. Emily and Sarah had once thought they could rewrite my story, cast me as a fool while they lived their hidden life. But in the end, it wasn't me who lost everything. It was them. And as I sat by the fire that night, watching the snow fall quietly outside, I knew one thing for certain. The past was finally buried, and the future was mine to build, free of lies, free of them, and stronger than ever.